What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk about something that came up in a previous video that I released. It came up in the comments section, right? um, so in the previous video that I released, it dealt with the theme of how do you go about identifying people who are black slash partially black. I probably should have actually named it partially black instead of just black, but I didn't. That was my mistake. But I was just talking about things that you look for as far as like the cultural things and the biological things, the traits and whatnot, right? And in the comments sections, a few people brought up the fact that, it seems like I adhere to the one drop rule, because I consider people who are partially black to be black. I actually, when it comes to the one drop rule and myself, I'm torn, right? On one hand, I do agree with people, especially people like Chrissy, who say that we do need to have like standards and criteria for who's black, right? And that we should not be still following the one drop rule. I do agree with that. But because of my family and my personal story, I at times sort of kind of like waver, and I've mentioned this before in a previous video as well. The video titled "In the Case of White Passing Black People," right? And as I mentioned, my family, particularly, especially like my father's side of the family, like there's a lot of people on his side of the family, including himself, who are white passing. So for me personally, I'm torn between, on one hand, wanting criteria, but also on the other hand, wanting to maintain my family, right? Because if, if I do say that, oh, my dad's not black, wouldn't that be a lie to an extent? I think so. My dad's not black and I'm mixed. Now I'm claiming a mixed identity, right? Wouldn't that be strange? Wouldn't you give me the side eye for that? Like, wait a minute, you've been black all this time. You've been referring to yourself as black. You've never, claimed a mixed race identity or a biracial identity. So why are you doing it now, right? It's strange. It's weird, right? But as well, I can even go a little bit deeper into this, right? And, talk about, bring up some things as far as like my family is concerned, right? And why I have somewhat of a difficult time, for lack of a better word, for giving up this rule. All right, let me go into like a story from my family, right? And this is a story that my mother told me. All right. So let's see. I can set the scene for you. All right. So my mother was in California at the time, and my father was in California as well at the time. My father's side of the family, my father and his side of the family, come from Ohio, right? So I think he was there with one of his brothers, and my mother was working as a train operator for, I believe, BART. I think that's like Bay Area Rapid Transit, right? And I think my father approached my mom and started talking with her. And I guess one thing led to another, and he wound up, I guess, trying to ask her out on a date, right? And my mother, right, being under the impression at the time when she saw my father that he was Caucasian, she had told him, like, you know, oh, thank you, but I don't date interracially, right? So then my father tells my mom, right, that, I'm black too, right? Okay. And she doesn't believe him, right? She doesn't believe him. You know, um, so like the next time they meet, or at least sometime afterward, I think he winds up bringing some pictures of his family, right? And she still kind of was like, who are these black people you took taking pictures with, right? She was still kind of like iffy, but obviously she believed him enough to uh, go out with him, right? And because of that, right, that one drop rule, right, you know, is kind of in a strange way, it's kind of like, well, I'm here because of it, right? A lot of people in the black community are in the black community as well as even existing because of this rule, right? And I can understand some people's like issues with this rule because I do have issues with the rule myself. You know, I I think that it's it's like a crazy rule that's not really rooted in logic. It's rooted in racism and white supremacy, and it doesn't really make sense. But us as black people, right? We have, the ability, the talent, and the skill to turn lemons into lemonade, right? To make the best of a bad situation, right? That's kind of like part of who we are as a people, Black/African American people, right? And that's one of the things I mentioned in my like 10 things I love about black folks video, right? Our resilience and being able to um, make the best of a bad situation, right? And I think we've done that with the one drop rule in some senses, or in some sense at least. I mean, it does. The rule has caused confusion. It has, but I think it has benefited us in some ways because it has increased our population, and oftentimes, like when these interracial couples have children, particularly interracial with black, they come to our community, so they do increase our population. And gives us more. There's power in numbers, right? So it gives us more power. You know, when it comes to like voting and supporting different issues and et cetera, right? But on the flip side, it does create confusion because it's like, well, who has a claim to blackness, you know? But then it's like, well, almost like who doesn't have a claim to blackness? It seems like anyone can be black, right? um, so for me personally, it's kind of like it's the rule kind of played a big part in my, existence, which is kind of, you know, a little fucked up, It is a little fucked up that kind of like white supremacy, played a part. But unfortunately, white supremacy is so invasive and so just not. I want to say like, well, in a lot of different things that we don't even notice. You know. If I didn't have family members, especially my father, who were white passing, I probably would feel exactly the same way that other people, other black people are feeling. Like, well, don't step on my blackness, and why is this person being black? I would probably be like that too, but it's different when it's kind of like your people, right? It's different when it's your people as well. There's been a few people in my comment section who's even mentioned that they have white passing family members too. Perhaps like their father or their grandfather, their grandparents, maybe like some cousins, etc. Right? And it has been like that for a long time, where it was like one drops and you're in, right? Um, a lot of our civil rights leaders or black leaders, right, were light skinned. You got your Malcolm X, definitely, Huey P. Newton, um, who else? Um, Louis Farrakhan. Uh, let's see, Muhammad Ali. You know, a lot of these guys were light skinned. You know, and I guess you know I might be kind of like blurring the lines and mixing the lines because those guys were light skinned, not necessarily white passing, but still, it's like, well, like I said, like Sensei Ashimatsu, I still don't know how to pronounce her name, Seren, right? Like she said, it becomes a slippery slope when you start talking about who's black and who's not black, right? Because then, like, people can people could challenge my blackness. Keep it real, There's probably some people who may be looking at my video and being like, "Well, how are you black?" You know? I mean, to the people who look at my videos, who comment on my videos, do you feel that I'm black? Do you see my blackness? But even more important, do you feel my blackness, right? Because that's important too. It's a difference. It's like I heard when it comes to like white passing people, from Tatiana Mercedes. She said this, but she was like, it's one thing when people don't see your blackness, but it's another thing when people don't feel your blackness, right? And I think this even comes into play when we talk about like monoracial black people, people who look black. Some people are like, kind of like, you look black, but you may not act black, They don't get that vibe from you. And I think, like, for me personally, in my personal experience, like I said, I really haven't really had people like just straight up challenge my blackness and say that I'm not black. Usually, it's more like a scale, like right, you're like right here, and we're like right here. Well, maybe like like a scale, right? When it's like you're like at 5, and we're like at 9 out of 10, um, and as well, I don't think I really give off like a strong, like, I guess, black vibe. I don't think, as far as like maybe like cultural, like, I guess my voice maybe, right? Because I guess my voice doesn't have like that quote unquote black accent to it, kind of like, let me see if I can affect the black a black accent right quick, like. Let me see. I'll channel this guy, this clown right here. Like, you black hoes, better tighten up. These white and Spanish hoes getting spiffy on you, right? I guess my voice is a little different. I guess it's maybe a bit more like newscaster ish, maybe, are not accented to a particular ethnic group or region, which isn't really an issue, but again, those are like kind of like cultural things that people take into account when considering blackness, right? And I think when it comes to monoracial people and people not feeling their blackness, it's because of a cultural thing, right? And I think it's the same thing throughout all shades, right? The cultural thing, when it's like, I don't feel your blackness, because I guess to an extent people feel like blackness is somewhat of a performance, right? Black, white people and Latino people and even some Asian people, kind of, if they've been raised like in a black neighborhood, you may be able to kind of like, I guess, feel something coming from them, some type of a black influence coming from them, right? But I think when it comes to me and my personal experience, I feel like mine's is subtle, right? I think people pick up on it one way or another. People tend to pick up on it biologically and even culturally. I think people can pick up on it. Black people, you know, tend to have that sort of sense, tend to know what to look for, right? But I'm kind of going off topic for a sec. That's the thing, though. All these topics lead into new topics and more topics. Um, but when it comes to me and the one drop rule, right? It's a little. I'm torn. Honestly, I'm torn. But I do actually agree with people as far as like we need to get rid of it, we don't need to be adhering to it anymore, et cetera, right? I do agree with that. But as far as like I guess putting that into effect for me in my personal life, I don't think I could do that because of my family, you know. And as well, to be honest, my father's side of the family is the family I'm way more familiar with than my mom's side of the family. Um, you know, I've been to family reunions on my dad's side of the family plenty of times. I visited his family. You know, his brothers. Um, my uncles, my grandparents. You know, great cousins. Great aunts, uncles, etc. Right. So if I were to kind of like disconnect myself, then it would be a bit strange for me. Then I would be looking at those people as not my people. And that's the thing. I never felt like I guess out of place on my dad's side of the family. I don't know my mom's side of the family all that well, honestly. Keep it real. Um, so I can't really say if I felt out of place or not because I've never been in the place to feel out of place, right? So again, another reason for, as far as me personally, on a personal level, not being able to kind of like, I guess, totally disconnect from the one drop rule, right? Um, but yeah, um, when it comes to like celebrities who are white passing, oftentimes I kind of wonder, like, how do, Vin Diesel and The Rock racially identify? How does Rashida Jones racially identify, right? Um, and it's kind of like if you're white passing, sometimes it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if those guys don't identify as black, then we give it on the side eye, right? But if they do identify as black, then we got a problem with it when they start, stepping on our toes and taking our opportunities away from us, right? So I think on the flip side, monoracial black people do send mixed messages about how they want to classify and deal with white passing people, to be honest. Um, and I think that, you know, white passing people, I think at this point, it seems like white passing people are sort of, gradually kind of like going either to be biracial or just to be white. And to be fair, that's been happening for a minute as far as like the whiteness, because some white passing black people did pass into whiteness. That has happened, and it continues to happen too. Um, but on the flip side, some white people, or white passing people rather, did come to the black community, right? Why do you think they came to the black community if they were white passing? What made them come to the black community, right? And I think it was because of their family, right? Because they may have had family members who perhaps were not white passing, because that happens too. So they may not want to have been separated from their family. So they say, well, let me just come and thug it out in the black community and just be down for my people in the cause, right? But on the flip side, when you think of white passing people who do pass as white, what did they have to give up? Because a lot of them did give up their families. A lot of them cut ties with their families who at least weren't white passing. And some white passing people just got with other white passing people and just passed as white. Thus, you kind of had an ally in that. But then some white passing people married white people. Some of the white people may have knew that they were white passing and just been cool with it. And then other white people didn't know about it, right? So they had this secret, right? So this is a complicated topic for me personally. But um, like I said, I do agree. We do need to have some standards, some criteria for blackness. We can't just be letting anyone into the black club, especially at this point, right? Because I think the one drop rule is off the books, officially at least, off the law, right? And I feel like this is a generational thing, right? Because I think the the younger people are tending to claim biracial more, mixed a lot more, because those categories are available because they weren't available at that time, right? And that's the thing too. It's like, well, we were forced here by white people. White people created this, right? So it's kind of like we were all victims to an extent because we all were affected by this rule, but we made the best of it, right? We made the best of the situation, right? I know some people probably have some issues that come up because of white passing people being in the mix. That's true. But on the other hand, I mean, heck, Malcolm X's mom was white passing, right? I mean, that one drop, right? If we didn't have that one drop, we might not have Malcolm X. Now, come on. I don't want, like, we gonna just kick Malcolm X out of the community like that. We gonna do Malcolm X like that, you know? And he did go into blackness, right? He did marry and perpetuate the blackness in his family. He got himself a black queen, right? And went on to have black children with her too, right? So it's like the family, his mom's side, or his mom, her blackness was stolen, but she got it back a little bit, right? Through Malcolm X's father, and then Malcolm X going to his wife. So, it kind of was able to perpetuate blackness, or put blackness back into the family, right? And there's a lot more other people who have white passing parents, right? What about them? Like, do those people now become mixed, biracial? Should they not have a claim to blackness? Because this does have a sort of a trickle effect, a trickle down effect, right? Because once we remove one aspect, they're like, well, how are we going to deal with the product of that? So it's very layered, but the way I see it is, I feel like you need to have at least a connection to blackness, right? I guess I feel like one of your parents needs to be black, like a monoracial black person, right? Majority black, at least, right? Because African Americans typically aren't 100% black. So majority black. I think one of your parents need to be at least majority black for you to have a claim to blackness, right? It needs to be a black parent within the first generation, for me personally. If your parent is like biracial and your other parent is white, then that's when it gets murky for me, right? I think that's when I think biracial and mixed, those categories really need to come into play, honestly. Um, you know, and honestly, like I said before, when it came in my video about light-skinned and biracial people who want to go outside the community and have their kids, but then want to come back to this community and have us accept their kids, their white passing kids, I said, if you out of the community, or if you go out of the community rather, you need to stay out of the community. You can't be going out of the community then want to come back. into the community when you done had your child outside with someone outside the community and want us to accept your child as black. That ain't cool. That ain't right. You need to be coming towards the blackness. You can't be going away from the blackness and want to come toward the blackness when you feel it's convenient because you feel like, oh, I don't want my child to, be denying me, my white passing child be denying me and pretending like they ain't got a black parent and whatnot. And, and you don't want no imitation of life issues come up. So, yeah, you know. So like you need to be coming toward the blackness. Come toward it. If you claim in black, you need to be coming towards the blackness. You can't be no light-skinned person or no biracial person having kids, having kids with white people, especially having these white passing kids and coming back to us. Why are you coming back to us? Why do you feel the need to come back to us? If you out, stay out. No shade. I'm just saying. I ain't trying to be shady, but again, this is part of the thing. This perpetuates it. The issues with identity and colorism. This is part of the reason why that is. So I'm saying, like, if you are white passing or light skinned, you need to be having kids with black folk. Okay, you need to keep it real. They need to be darker than a paper bag. Yeah, I said it. I took it there. All right, they need to be darker than the paper bag if you light skinned or white passing and want to have kids that are considered black. They need to be darker than the paper bag. All right. I don't want this BS to continue. So I think we need to set up that type of criteria, like the reverse paper bag test, right? That was used as a way to sort of be discriminatory against darker skinned people, right? Initially, but let's flip it around. Let's be a little discriminatory towards lighter skinned people and put them under the fire and say, hey, this is what we expect from you. If you don't, you ain't down and you ain't in the community. But let me sum up this video. As usual, I'm all over the place and I've gone on for longer than I intended. But to sum up this video, again, I agree that the one-drop rule is crazy and it's rooted in racism and anti-blackness. But because of my personal situation, my family and things like that, I would feel a little weird, just cutting ties with them, Who wouldn't feel weird, right? So I'm torn, but I feel like I am leaning towards, leaning away towards the one-drop rule. Only time I tend to lean toward it when it comes to my family, definitely, and maybe perhaps some like celebrities who claim blackness and who claim it strongly, right? You gotta be, if you white passing, you need to be saying it loud and proud. Definitely, you black and you proud. We need to know that for sure. Like, we can't be like playing guessing games about your identity. If you black, you black. If you're not, you're not. All right. So yeah, I guess that's the end of my video. It's been all over the place, but just in case you didn't get the overall message in this video, I'll say it one last time. Long story short, I agree that the one-drop rule is crazy and whatnot, and white passing people, probably that concept shouldn't exist, but it does. But I'm torn, I'm just torn, But I find myself sort of leaning towards the away from the one-drop rule. So yeah, what do you think? What do you guys think? Let me know. Feel free to comment, subscribe, thumbs up. I appreciate the support definitely in the feedback. You guys have been giving great feedback. So thanks a lot. Adios and goodbye for now.